When it comes to Magic the Gathering, one of the most hype times is when we get to deal with spoilers. Now, we've already had multiple Commander Legends leaks before even starting that season. But today, my friends, we're casting that all aside because we literally have information about Kaldheim today. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. It's Sunday, and I'll be honest, I'm dressed for taking a day off. I originally wasn't planning to do anything today because I got a video coming out on Fantasy Geographic. I know I say that a lot, and interesting Magic news happens, and I show up on Sundays anyways, and that's exactly what happened today. First, I saw that there was Commander Legends spoilers, and I went, ooh, I could talk about that. That's totally worth talking about. And then I found out we had information from Kaldheim. Now, not spoiler cards like we have for Commander Legends, but enough information to let us know the names and the kind of concepts behind multiple gods that are coming in the set, as well as different creature types. It's pretty interesting. So if you want to know where the information that we're about to go over comes from, it comes from a website called Southern Hobby Supply. Okay, now this is a place where you go to pre-order miniatures. So this is tied into Magic the Gathering miniatures. They're doing wave 14 of these miniatures, which is the wave that's timed to coincide with the time frame that Kaldheim is out. They won't have the exact same release date. However, they will be released at that time. Now, this is something that's been ongoing for a while, where they obviously were on wave 14, right? So they released these miniatures, and some of them will be from previous sets, and some of them will be from like the set that we're dealing with right now. And in the most technical sense, I guess you could say it's like a future set, because you have to pre-order the models now, like by the end of the year, really. You don't have to order them in October, but you have to order them before the end of the year to really lock it in. I guess that's how it works. I've never purchased these. Most of the time, I wasn't even really aware of these miniatures, but it has given us a fair bit of reliable information when it comes to the sort of things that we can see in the upcoming Kaldheim set. So Kaldheim is going to be like an Ice Age themed, not like the Magic set Ice Age, but like an Ice Age kind of world that is full of like Norse warriors and like hardy people who are used to surviving in really tough climates, right? And so we have a couple of different, like the more common things that we're going to see. There are elf clerics and fighters, dwarven clerics and fighters. Those sort of things are automatic. That kind of thing could easily also be kind of a tie-in to Zendikar. There's a few things on the list that can easily be tied into Zendikar. Jace and Nahiri are models that are being made, but since they are currently in Zendikar Rising, the likelihood of them being in Kaldheim is actually really, really low. And with previous waves of these models, they've done, here's new stuff, and here's stuff from the last couple sets as well, depending. So we've got Jace, Nahiri, and Kaya as the three planeswalkers we know that they are making for this particular wave. Now, Jace and Nahiri feature prominently in the Zendikar Rising story, so it is theoretically possible that it could carry on into Kaldheim, but I feel like the story from Zendikar and Kaldheim are going to be separate. So my guess is this Jace and Nahiri thing is just a past remnant. Now, with the Kaya, it could go either way depending on how far back they go, because Kaya was included in the War of the Spark planeswalkers, right? So if they're going that far back, then Kaya could be from there. But if not, we could actually be looking at a situation where Kaya is on Kaldheim. And what would she specifically be doing there? So that is an interesting sort of thought. But again, I don't know what the likelihood of that is. The more interesting stuff to me was the fact that they're going to include like human berserkers. So I expect like crazy berserkers are a crazy concept, right? Because you already have like, you start with warriors or fighters, however you want to look at it. Fighter, warrior, and they're like your big, like beefy guy. And then you take it to like barbarian level, and barbarians are like bigger and musclier and beefier and crazier. And then berserkers are like barbarians, but the next step up. They may not automatically be beefier to begin with, But once they go into their Berserker rage and start foaming at the mouth and like going crazy, then they're a force to be reckoned with that like nothing else is on the same level. They exceed barbarians, they exceed warriors. Like Berserkers are a cool concept. That sort of like strength gained and also complete disregard for your own safety in that case makes them very compelling style warriors. And like, it makes sense to have those kind of people living in a cold, inhospitable land, right? Like that makes perfect sense. Now there are Cosmo creatures. So you've got Cosmo Serpent and Cosmo Wolf. Now, some people, when they think of Cosmo, might think of maybe that magazine, you know, Cosmopolitan magazine. This is not a magazine wolf or a magazine serpent. To me, calling it a Cosmo Serpent or a Cosmo Wolf is like a cosmic serpent or a cosmic wolf, right? Like something that is either from like, it's godly in origin, right? That's what it's going to be. Because I mean, cosmic can mean a number of different things. Some people can take it to mean like outer space travel and thing like that. But for me, it's more like people who look at the stars and like worship gods that they see in the stars and then other beasts that live therein. Now, this set is going to have gods, right? That we'll get to them, but it's going to have gods. And if they've got this like cosmic wolf, cosmic serpent thing, maybe what they're doing this time, because the gods in Theros were essentially star gods, right? They existed up in the starry night sky based on like constellation gods, which makes perfect sense, right? So if those gods existed actually as the stars, and then the constructs they made were kind of made out of a starry night sky, but weren't the same as constellations, perhaps what will go on with the gods and goddesses of Kaldheim will be a scenario where they go ahead and say, okay, these gods don't actually appear in the stars, right? Like, they're basically like, hey, I don't appear in the stars, but I have a servant that does. So maybe each god has its own beast. So one has a cosmic wolf, one has a cosmic serpent, and those are what are representative in the night sky, or perhaps the gods themselves take that shape in the night sky. You know what I mean? Like you have a god who normally has a humanoid form, but he's thought of as like a bear or a fox or an owl or whatever it is, and that's how he's represented in the constellations. One of the things I'm most curious about is whether Wizards is going to go again with the constellation variation for gods, or if they're going to keep that specifically unique to the just to the world of Theros. Because for me, we have had a few different waves of gods, and they feel distinctly different, right? Like the Theros gods don't feel like the Amonkhet gods, right? So I'm hoping that these gods are given enough of their own identity as well to stand out, and I feel like they will be. So these cosmic animals I'm curious about, but I'm mostly curious about the gods. Now, the cool thing about the gods specifically is we actually have mock-up versions of what the image, like what it's going to look like as a model, and that's going to let us kind of, at least somewhat, maybe guess at what's going on with magic. So let's take a look first at Allrund, the god of wisdom. So you can see him, he's standing there with his like axe held high. Now what is that? First of all, what is that axe made out of? Like, it kind of feels like it's an axe made out of mystical ice, right? It's got that cold blue aspect. Now this is like a computer generated image, so this isn't exactly what he's going to look like. There'll be a little bit of variation. If you look at the models they've made of other things, you can definitely tell who they're trying to portray, but it doesn't look exactly like it does on a magic card. So this is going to be like a rough outline of what he looks like. But to me, it looks like this pole axe that he has could be made out of like frost ice that's been hardened with magic. And it's got this kind of star vibe in the middle that's got that shimmer that ice or an oil patch on your driveway could have. That totally also adds to the concept of this being reflective ice, but also it kind of functions like a North Star or something, you know what I mean? Like, it's got that star vibe in the middle as well, which takes it from just like being a weapon also into like, I guess, a symbol of, like, I guess if you think about it like a North Star, the North Star can lead you somewhere, right? And it can give you knowledge of how to get home. Like, so I don't know, just the wisdom to look to the North Star, or this, I feel that kind of tied into it. And when you look at his body, you can see he's got like, this is the kind of god that we worship by barbarians. Yes, he is wizened, he's old, he's got a long flowing beard or whatever, it's all white, his eyebrows are white, he's clearly old, but he's also clearly incredibly sturdy. Like, look at the build of his body. He's clearly a very muscled individual in a power stance, like a rock god. He's standing there with his legs spread and his axe thrust up triumphantly into the air as his cloak billows up around him. And his cloak is made out of probably like some kind of bear fur. Who knows? We might be dealing with like cool level stuff where maybe the Cosmo wolves and Cosmo serpents aren't servants of the god. Like, they are the animals they hunt and prey upon. You know what I mean? Like, maybe he's wearing bear fur, but it's from a cosmic bear. Bears that roam the heavens and would completely decimate mortal men, and only gods can handle them. And we're gonna get the ability to summon beasts like that up. That sounds really cool. So you can see, looking at him, he's got like, he's got these, it's almost like indentations in him. I don't know if it's supposed to look like this or if this is just a characteristic of the model. Do you know what I mean? I feel like he's gonna have all kinds of, is it like ritual tattooing? I'm not 100% sure what that is supposed to represent, but it could be like ritual tattooing or some kind of like permanent scarring or something that these people do to themselves, you know, because that is sort of, there have been groups in the world who have done certain kinds of body modifications because they believe it means particular things, you know what I mean? So we could see that with this guy too. Either way, he's got like an old world feel. He doesn't feel like a sophisticated new world god. He feels like a brutal, old school, like survive by might style god. Like, remember, this is the god of wisdom that we're looking at. He looks very warlike. You know what I mean? He looks like he is oriented towards battle, and that's the god of wisdom. So that speaks to a community that highly values martial traits. Even their gods that are about thinking, being wise and whatnot, are also very keyed in to the brutish struggle that is their attempt to survive, right? So dude, I've got to say, I absolutely love the flavor behind this, and I like the fact that the armor that he has on his legs matches that sort of iridescent look to the top of the pole arm as well. And the fact that it's somewhat crude and just strapped on with leather straps. I like the somewhat primitive aspect of this. So this is the one god that we have got to see in advance. That's Allrund. And we actually have a goddess as well to take a look at. And let me just pull her up here real quick. She is Redane. That is her name. And you will see on the screen, if you look, that she obviously, I know some people, if you look, some people listen to this in the background. But here's the time to take a look at the screen, friend. So, she is basically like a giant Valkyrie. That's the vibe that I get from her. I like that the coloration all fits in to an ice world. Do you know what I mean? There's going to be a lot of like deep cold blues, a lot of white, very cool colors. There's nothing bright or stand outish about her. In fact, she doesn't really stand out as a god automatically. When you look at her, she just feels like an angel that might be in service of a god. But she's got these big, fluffy, feathery wings that give like the idea that she could just kind of encircle you with them and keep you warm in the winter there. She's got a crazy looking shield. Honestly, I'm pretty interested in that shield. It's got a weird angle to it that I can't really tell what it's exactly supposed to be, but it has this design that's flowing across it that makes it look like it's probably the most intricate part of everything that she's wearing. And she's got a pretty plain looking sword with an interesting hilt that matches her color scheme. I really like the touch of the thick white fur that is puffing out from different parts of the armor. So if you take a look at her little arm brace there, you'll see two huge tufts of white fur. The same thing goes for her boots, right? You've got the fur that's coming up off the top along with it going along the middle of it. And there is even a little cosmetic touch of that around the base of her sword hilt. And you can see that she's got, again, a very primitive style garb, right? And again, a very martial style god. We're looking at a society that is savage in nature most likely, has a really hard time surviving, and as a result would worship gods that would help them thrive, and also the type of gods that would survive in that. And it's interesting to note the contrast between the fact that she has all of this fur, right, to keep her warm, but at the same time, it's pretty much just decoration, right? Because look at how much of her body is actually exposed to what would be insane frigid winter cold. You have the entirety of her head and neck. You have most of both of her arms, and even the bottom part of her tabard or whatever it is open so that her legs can come up and move too. So there's actually a minimal amount of coverage, right? Like the way that that's the skirt aspect part of it moves around, that's not going to offer you any wind protection. And like even her hair is just kind of like pulled up on, it's not like down around her head. So you have this scenario where it's quite clear that she is not a natural being, right? She would appear in front of these crazy berserkers or whatever, and they're all probably clothed head to toe, unless they're really in a berserker rage going, ah, but whatever, right? So just the contrast there. These gods seem really, really cool just on the surface. I mean, obviously I am filling in a lot of the gaps myself, right? I can't say for certain that they will represent the aspects that I'm saying, but that's the vibe that I get. They both the god and goddess genuinely feel like they fit into a forbidding Norse cold environment, 100% like that. I'm really, really interested to know what the god model is going to be here, because you can do it in different ways. You can have gods that are powers in their own right, where it doesn't matter whether the mortals care about what they have to say, believe in them, obey them, all that. The gods can do whatever they want, and they are not beholden to any mortal worshippers. Or will they be the style of gods that only exist because people believe in them, and without that belief, they cease to be able to have their powers, a la Theros. I mean, that's what happened to Heliod, right? Heliod was able to be bested because Elspeth was able to manipulate the beliefs of the common people, thus weakening Heliod. And honestly, the belief construct for gods is something I've always found really compelling, where it's like they're built up and magnificently powerful, but their power comes from all these tiny little drips of people believing in them, and that can also, like, it can flow up and build them into something huge and massive, but it can also flow away and leave them empty and weak, a hollow ghost drifting on the wind, just trying to convince someone to believe so they can have more substance. Dude, I love the flavor of that. But anyways, that's all of the spoiler information that I have for Kaldheim for you, my friends. Maybe tomorrow we will cover the Commander Legends information. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you like what I'm doing here, you're having a good time, like, comment, subscribe. It's all great for the channel. If you love what I'm doing, hop on my Patreon. I have just put out a brand new lore video on my lore channel, Fantasy Geographic. And if you come on over, you can enjoy it. I'd be happy to see you there. I will put a link to I'll put a link to the second most recent video, because probably by the time this video comes out, I won't have officially released the new lore video. It'll probably come out an hour or two later. But either way, I'll have a link up here. Check it out. Thanks for coming by, everybody. I'll see you guys tomorrow.